Hey guys, it's Sarah here. Sorry I haven't made a video in a little while, but I've been pretty busy with my music and school stuff, so please forgive me. Alright, so I finally want to talk about my theory about the Crypts and Jon's parentage. So at the end of this year's season of Game of Thrones, we find out that Jon is actually the son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark. We're not sure yet if he's legitimate or illegitimate, but I imagine we will find out in the near future. So we see the events at the Tower of Joy through Bran's eyes during his journey back south of the Wall. So we can guess that at this point, he's the most likely character in the show to be able to relay this information to Jon Snow. Unless, of course, we finally get to meet Howland Reed. So for those of you who don't know, Howland Reed accompanied Ned to the Tower of Joy, and he's Mira and Jojen Reed's father. He's the only character still alive aside from Bran who knows of Jon's true parentage. In the book, there's evidence that the Crypts hold an important secret for Jon. So whether or not the book plays out similarly to the show, I think this theory can still be applied to both the book and the show. So there's a number of ways Jon can learn about his parentage, but I believe it will happen in the Crypts with Bran, and I'm going to try to go over this as best as I can. Now, there are a ton of theories about the Crypts of Winterfell and what could be hiding in there, from ice dragons to stone dragons to the Horn of Winter, Secret Labyrinth, and while I'd love to talk about all of those theories, I'm going to save those for another time because I still think those theories could be true, but my theory for today is just focused on Jon and linking him to his parents, and why I think the Crypts are the key. So let's start with Jon's dreams. I'm walking down this long, empty hall. My voice echoes all around, but no one answers, so I walk faster, opening doors, shouting names. I don't even know who I'm looking for. Most nights, it's my father, but sometimes it's Rob instead, or my little sister, Arya, or my uncle. The castle is always empty. Even the ravens are gone from the rookery, and the stables are full of bones. That always scares me. So I start to run then, throwing open doors, climbing the tower 3 steps at a time, screaming for someone, for anyone. And then I find myself in front of the door to the crypts. It's black inside, and I can see the steps spiraling down. Somehow I know I have to go down there, but I don't want to. I'm afraid of what might be waiting for me. The old kings of winter are down there, sitting on their thrones with stone wolves at their feet and iron swords across their laps, but it's not them I'm afraid of. I scream that I'm not a Stark, that this isn't my place, but it's no good. I have to go anyway. So I start down, feeling the walls as I descend, with no torch to light the way. It gets darker and darker until I want to scream. So Jon's telling Sam about these dreams in A Game of Thrones. So I think the fact that Jon keeps dreaming about this is because there's something really, really important for him in the Crypts. There's no place for Jon in the Crypts because he's not a Stark, but a Targaryen, and yet they still hold importance to him because he has Stark blood from his mother's side. I think it's scary for him because the immensity of what he will find there will likely change his life and put him in danger if this theory is right. And it's also interesting that he's alone. As Aemon Targaryen once said to Jon, that a Targaryen alone in the world is a terrible thing. And we know that Jon struggles a lot with feeling like he belongs. I also can't imagine what else would be in the Crypts for Jon if it's not related to his parentage, because we know now that he is the son of Rhaegar, and this is huge, and I think it's going to be a huge plot point, so it would make sense for him to find something related to that in the Crypts. Now there's another dream that Jon has, which he shares with Bran, which could also be related to this theory. So it's pretty long. I'm just going to cut to the important part in my eyes, but basically Jon is dreaming through Ghost, and Bran is also dreaming, but in Jon's dream, Bran is a weirwood tree. So here we go. The weirwood had his brother's face. Had his brother always had 3 eyes? Not always, came the silent shout. Not before the crow. He sniffed at the bark, smelled wolf and tree and boy, but behind that there were other scents. The rich brown smell of warm earth and the hard gray smell of stone, and something else, something terrible. Death, he knew. He was smelling death. He cringed back, his hair bristling, and bared his fangs. Don't be afraid. I like it in the dark. No one can see you, but you can see them. But first you have to open your eyes. See? Like this. And the tree reached down and touched him. And that's from A Clash of Kings. Now, I plan on making more videos specifically focusing on breaking down different characters' dreams and what they could possibly mean. But just briefly, I think this dream mentions darkness, as did Jon's first dream. But here, Bran's telling Jon not to be afraid of that, because that's where he can open his eyes. And this suggests discovery, and it also suggests that Bran is involved with this discovery. So Bran mentions having this dream while he's hiding in the crypts of Winterfell. So this could be another clue. Perhaps that's the death that Ghost was smelling. Perhaps Bran can sense that there's something in the crypts for Jon, and that's why he had that dream. And it was a shared dream, because we know that Bran has green sight, but at that point in the story, it wasn't fully developed yet. So the theory is, I think Jon will find out who he really is in the crypts of Winterfell, but this won't matter unless he has a way to prove his connection to the Targaryen family, especially in the eyes of the rest of Westeros. So I personally subscribe to the theory that there's an item of some sort hidden in Lyanna's crypt, which will help to prove to others that Jon is the son of Lyanna and Rhaegar. And this is the first part of my theory. The second part of my theory revolves around how you will find this item, or know where to look for it, and that's where Bran comes into the picture. So the item or artifact Jon could potentially find would have to connect him to Lyanna or Rhaegar. I think mostly Rhaegar in this point, but either is fine. So the most notable artifact that's mentioned in the books and in the show is Rhaegar's harp. Some believe that it's hidden in Lyanna's tomb, possibly in combination with something else like a wedding cloak or a letter, which would explain to Jon who he is and give him the means to prove it, possibly even legitimacy. I mean, the letter may be a marriage document. We know that Targaryens did partake in polygamy historically, and there's evidence to suggest that Lyanna wasn't kidnapped by him, that she willingly ran away with Rhaegar. So it's possible, or the letter could provide legitimacy for Jon as a bastard. But I think, the harp has been mentioned almost as many times as Rhaegar has been in the books, and it has silver strings and was quite unique and recognizable as a Targaryen artifact. So it's possible it was left with Lyanna at the Tower of Joy when Rhaegar went to fight at the Trident, because probably wouldn't have taken it with him to war. And Ned maybe brought it back to bury with Lyanna as a part of the promise he made to her. Redditor user Can't Use also pointed out that it's not likely either of the Targaryen swords, Dark Sister or Blackfire, are buried there, as they're pretty connected to bastard Targaryen lines. They think it's most likely the harp, and so do I. You can click here for some more in-depth information. There's a lot of discussion and it's really interesting. But anyways, in the show, it would be interesting if Jon found any of these artifacts while burying Rickon. I don't know if the show is going to do the burying Rickon, but if he does in the show, he would likely have the Lords of the North as witnesses. And coupled with the validation from someone like Howland Reed, he may become a recognized Targaryen much faster and easier than if he did not have an item to strengthen his connection to Rhaegar and Lyanna. I don't really think that the word of a little boy who has visions, supposedly, and a recluse like Howland Reed would convince many unless he had something tangible to prove it. It would also be a really quick way to advance the plot. As Littlefinger says, a harp can be as dangerous as a sword in the right hands. So why do I think this item's in Lyanna's tomb? First of all, I think it's strange that she, being a woman and not a Lord of Winterfell, has a statue when no other women or non-lords before her have statues until Ned buries his family. So Ned said he made her one because of the love he had for her, but maybe part of the promise he made to her on her deathbed has something to do with this. If that promise was to preserve Jon's heritage and tell him about it when he was ready, this may have been a good place to hide something where it wouldn't be found by the wrong people. After all, Rhaegar thought his son would be the prince that was promised, and Lyanna may have believed this as well and thought it important to tell Jon of his destiny when he came of age. Lyanna's statue doesn't have the sword across the lap, as the other statues do. We learn that these swords are there to keep the spirits of the deceased within their tombs, and that they should not be released or tampered with. So maybe Lyanna's tomb having no sword means it's okay to open it. I don't know if it's ever okay to open a tomb, but it's possible. So if there is in fact an artifact which will give credit to Jon and his parentage, how will he find it? I feel it's unlikely that he will go and open Lyanna's tomb without any reason to do so, and I doubt he'll just stumble across it on his own. It's possible Jon will have another dream or vision, as we know he shares warg abilities with the other Starks, so he might have a bit of green sight, but I think the more likely situation here is that Bran returns to Winterfell and straight up just tells Jon who he is and they decide to go looking for clues, or Bran has a vision from the past where we see Ned hiding something. It could happen in a number of ways, but I think it's going to involve Bran for sure. Like I said before, if Jon happens to find this artifact with witnesses around, this would really help him become a recognized Targaryen in the eyes of the North, and possibly the rest of Westeros as well, really quickly. This could also be pretty dangerous for him if the wrong people find out before the time is right. I don't know if Jon will really want to do anything with his newfound knowledge. He certainly would have a credible claim on the Iron Throne, but I'm not sure he's really looking for that kind of power and responsibility. I guess only time will tell. I'm also a little suspicious about Littlefinger. He seems to know a lot about everything, and I think there are maybe little clues throughout the books that kind of suggest that he might know who Jon really is. This could definitely be bad for Jon, because I know in the show, at least, Littlefinger's not too happy that Jon became the king of the North. I think he was putting all his money on Sansa, and so maybe if he knows about Jon's parentage, he can quickly try to ruin any chance of Jon claiming the Iron Throne, because that's what he wants. So, especially now that Jon is no longer part of the Night's Watch, he's a threat again. We'll see how that plays out. Anyways, thanks so much for watching. Please let me know what you think in the comments. I've posted some links to similar conversations on this topic below, and I will be working on a series of videos related to Azor Ahai and the fight for the Dawn in the coming weeks. So, hope to see you there. Thanks.